I'm Lucas Bennett, and I live in Willow Ridge, a suburban neighborhood where every picket fence is painted bone white and the lawns are trimmed with surgical precision. It's the kind of place that promises serenity but brews trouble, and that trouble's name is Karen Pritchard, the HOA president who rules with a clipboard and a sneer. This story is about her, me, and my daughter, Ava, whose therapy sandbox Karen filled with cement, thinking she could shatter our world. She had no idea I'm a child welfare inspector. I was about to bring her reign crashing down. Ava's 9, with chestnut braids tied with colorful ribbons and eyes that shine like stars, even on her toughest days. She has spina bifida, meaning her legs don't work and she navigates the world in a wheelchair. After her mom passed from cancer 3 years ago, I moved us to Willow Ridge for a fresh start. I'm a lean guy, quiet, with a job investigating child neglect and abuse cases. But here, I'm just Ava's dad. I don't flaunt my role as a child welfare inspector, enforcing laws to protect kids like Ava. All I wanted was a safe haven for her, and we found it in her therapy sandbox. The sandbox was Ava's sanctuary, a wide wooden box in our backyard filled with fine white sand, built high so she could reach it from her wheelchair. Her occupational therapist recommended it too. Boost her sensory processing and fine motor skills. Ava loved it, sifting sand through her fingers, molding castles, hiding tiny plastic animals, her giggles like music. I'd sit on the patio, watching her shape intricate towers, her focus a quiet miracle. Neighbors cherished it too. Mrs. Larson, the retired teacher next door, would bring seashells, saying, "Ava, you're a sand sculptor." Kids like Tommy from across the street would visit, and Ava would guide them in building moats, her shyness fading. The sandbox was her joy, her strength, her way of feeling whole. Everyone saw that except Karen. Karen Pritchard had been gunning for us since we arrived. Maybe it was the wheelchair ramp I built, which she called a blight on the neighborhood. In her first venomous letter, maybe it was Ava's laughter, too disruptive for her sterile Willow Ridge. She'd storm over, her short gray hair gleaming, her deep neckline blouses flashing, her curvy, bulky frame casting a shadow as she barked about unapproved backyard structures or sand littering the grass. Her eyes, cold and judgmental, lingered on Ava's wheelchair like it offended her. I'd nod, sweep the stray sand, pay her fines, and keep the peace. Ava had enough challenges: weekly physical therapy, school kids who stared, the ache of missing her mom. I thought I could handle Karen's pettiness without a fight. I underestimated her cruelty. It was a golden October morning when the storm broke. Ava was in the sandbox, shaping a sandcastle with a blue plastic shovel, humming a tune from her favorite cartoon. I was on the patio, sipping coffee, skimming case notes, glancing at her with a smile. Her braids swayed as she worked a ribbon, catching the sunlight. Then Karen barged into our yard, her face twisted with rage, her clipboard clutched like a weapon. "This sandbox is a violation," she shouted, pointing at it like it was a crime scene. "It's attracting bugs and ruining property values." I stood, forcing calm into my voice. "It's Ava's therapy, Karen. It's doctor recommended. On my property, and none of your business." She scoffed, her eyes flicking to Ava, hood frozen, her shovel trembling in her small hands. "Therapy, it's a filthy eyesore. It's gone, Lucas, or I'll make it happen." She scribbled furiously on her clipboard and stormed off, her heels sinking into the grass, leaving a trail of malice. Ava's eyes met mine, wide with fear. "Is she going to take my sandbox, Daddy?" Her voice was barely a whisper. Her ribbon slipping loose, I knelt beside her, brushing sand from her cheek. "No way, sweetheart. I'll keep it safe." But her smile was gone, and a knot tightened in my chest. Karen's threats weren't empty. I spent the next 2 days fortifying my defense. I called Ava's therapist, Dr. Ellis, who emailed a detailed letter explaining the Sandbox's role in Ava's sensory and motor development. I reviewed property records. The Sandbox was well within our lot. No HOA rule against it. I photographed it, sand pristine, toys neatly arranged to counter Karen's hazard claim. I even drafted a polite email to Karen, attaching the therapist's letter, hoping to appeal to reason. But Karen didn't deal in reason, she dealt in control. That Friday, while I was at work investigating a neglect case in the city and Ava was at school, Karen made her move. My phone buzzed with a call from Mrs. Larson, her voice trembling. "Lucas, get home now. Karen's in your yard with a cement truck. She's destroying Ava's Sandbox." I floored my sedan, heart pounding, dodging traffic. When I pulled into Willow Ridge, the sight hit me like a sledgehammer. The Sandbox was a gray, hardened slab cement poured over Ava's soft sand. Her toys buried, the wooden frame splintered under the weight. Karen stood there, arms crossed, her smirk sharp as a blade, a cement crew packing up behind her. Neighbors watched, some filming on phones, others murmuring, their faces etched with shock and guilt. "What the hell have you done?" I roared, leaping from my car, my voice shaking the air. Karen's smirk widened, her voice dripping with fake authority. "I warned you, Lucas. That Sandbox was a health hazard. The HOA approved its removal. You had no right." I shouted, fists clenched, stepping closer. "That was Ava's therapy. She's disabled, Karen. You knew that?" She rolled her eyes, unmoved. "Don't play the pity card. Rules are rules." She turned to the crew. "Clean up and go." Then she sauntered off, her clipboard swinging, as if she'd just won a prize. I wanted to chase her, to make her feel the weight of her cruelty. But Mrs. Larson grabbed my arm, her eyes wet. "Ava's coming home soon, Lucas." I stared at the slab, my stomach churning. Ava's blue shovel stuck out, half buried, its handle cracked. The sand was gone, entombed in cement, and with it, Ava's joy. I grabbed a shovel from the shed, chipping at the cement, but it was solid, unyielding. Sweat stung my eyes and my hands blistered, but I couldn't free even one toy. Mrs. Larson stayed, wringing her hands, muttering, "That woman's heartless." Neighbors like Mr. Chen, the pharmacist across the street, approached, offering awkward apologies. "We should have stopped her," he said, head low. Their regret didn't help. Karen had struck at Ava's core, and I had to face her heartbreak. When Ava's school bus pulled up, I braced myself. She wheeled down the ramp, her braids bouncing, a ribbon fluttering. Then she saw the Sandbox. Her face crumpled, her eyes locking on the cement, my sand. She whispered, wheeling closer. She touched the slab, her fingers trembling, then burst into sobs, deep and wrenching, her wheelchair rocking. "Why, Daddy? Why?" she cried, her voice breaking me. I knelt, pulling her close, but she shook, her grief a tidal wave. Mrs. Larson wept, and neighbors lowered their phones, some turning away, unable to bear it. I held Ava until her sobs slowed, her small body limp against mine. "I'm so sorry, honey," I whispered, my voice cracking. "I'll fix this, I promise." I carried her inside, her wheelchair left by the slab, and tucked her into bed, her ribbon tangled, her eyes red and distant. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, the cement slab a dark wound through the window. Karen thought she'd won, but she didn't know who I was. As a child welfare inspector, I protect kids like Ava. And Karen's act wasn't just vandalism, was child endangerment, a misdemeanor under state law for harming a disabled child's therapeutic equipment. She'd also trespassed, violated HOA bylaws, and hired an unpermitted crew. I was going to bury her with the evidence. The next morning, I built my case with surgical precision. I pulled Ava's therapy records, including Dr. Ellis's letter, proving the Sandbox's medical necessity. I reviewed HOA bylaws. Karen had acted without a board vote, a clear breach. I photographed the slab, documenting the buried toys, the splintered frame, the stray sand grains trapped in cracks. I called a contact at the State Environmental Agency, who confirmed the cement crew lacked permits for residential disposal, violating waste regulations. I filed a child welfare complaint, citing Karen's deliberate harm to Ava's mental and physical health, backed by Dr. Ellis's statement on the trauma caused. I contacted the county property office, verifying the Sandbox's legality and Karen's trespassing. Deputy Rivera, a colleague, confirmed the crew's lack of permits. Every piece of evidence was a nail in Karen's coffin. I went further. Gathering neighbor testimonies, Mrs. Larson wrote a scathing account of Karen's bullying fines for minor infractions. Threats to silence dissent. Mr. Chen described her intimidating the community, how she'd find him for a crooked mailbox. I collected a dozen statements, painting Karen as a tyrant. The evidence was overwhelming, a legal fortress. A week later, the HOA held an emergency meeting in the community center, a cramped room with flickering lights and folding chairs. Karen sat at the front, her clipboard poised, her smirk defiant, as if she were untouchable. Neighbors packed the seats, buzzing with anger and curiosity. Mrs. Larson clutched a photo of Ava shaping a sandcastle, her eyes blazing. I walked in not as Lucas, the quiet dad, but as Lucas Bennett, child welfare inspector. My badge clipped to my belt, a thick folder of evidence in hand. Karen opened the meeting, her voice syrupy with false concern. Let's discuss the elm. Street sandbox removal. It was a health hazard, and I acted in the HOA's best interest. I stood, my voice slicing through the room. You destroyed my daughter's therapy sandbox, Karen. Ava's disabled. That sand was her lifeline, and you buried it in cement without a shred of humanity. The room went silent. Karen's smirk faltered, but she held her ground. It was a mess, Lucas. Don't exaggerate. It's child endangerment, I said, stepping forward, handing the board my folder. You violated state welfare laws by destroying a disabled child's therapy equipment. You trespassed on my property, broke HOA bylaws by acting without a vote, and hired an unpermitted crew, violating environmental regulations. I've filed charges with the state. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I plugged a USB into the projector and played a neighbor's video, Karen directing the cement truck laughing as the sand vanished, Ava's blue shovel sinking. Mrs. Larson sobbed, holding up Ava's photo. A man in the back shouted, "She's heartless." Karen leaped up, her face red, clipboard clattering to the floor. This is outrageous. You're twisting this to attack me? It's justice, I said, my badge glinting under the lights. I'm a child welfare inspector. You hurt my daughter, and you'll answer for it. The room erupted. Neighbors stood, chanting, "Step down." Mrs. Larson waved Ava's photo, her voice cracking. You hurt that sweet girl. The board, three nervous figures in ill-fitting suits, whispered frantically, their faces pale. The chairman, Ellen, stood, voice trembling. We'll vote to remove Karen as president. Cheers drowned out Karen's protests, her face crumpling as her power dissolved. Karen sank into her chair, her clipboard useless, her smirk gone. I didn't gloat. I packed my folder, nodded at Mrs. Larson, and walked out. The real fight was in the courts, and I was ready. The law came down on Karen like a hammer. The state charged her with child endangerment, a misdemeanor carrying a $5,000 fine and up to 6 months in jail. Trespassing and unpermitted cement disposal added $3,000 in penalties. In court, I testified in my inspector's jacket, badge shining, voice steady but heavy with Ava's pain. I detailed the Sandbox's role, Karen's deliberate cruelty, and The trauma inflicted. Dr. Ellis testified, her words piercing. Ava's progress stalled. The loss caused significant emotional harm. The neighbor's video played, Karen's laugh a damning echo in the silent courtroom. Mrs. Larson spoke, her voice shaking, recounting Ava's sobs by the slab. The judge was unforgiving. "You targeted a disabled child and showed no remorse," she said, her eyes hard. Karen was sentenced to 5 months in jail, 2 years probation, and ordered to pay $5,000 to replace the Sandbox and fund Ava's additional therapy sessions. Her budget lawyer fumbled, and she left the courtroom, head bowed, handcuffs glinting. Karen's house went up for sale before her sentence began. Her reign over Willow Ridge ended. Neighbors shunned her, their silence louder than any protest. The community rallied around Ava. Mrs. Larson organized a fundraiser, collecting enough to build a new sandbox bigger, with softer sand and a sturdier frame. Mr. Chen donated colorful buckets, and Tommy and other kids painted the wood with bright reds and blues, Ava's favorite colors. The building day was a celebration. Neighbors brought lemonade. Music played, and Ava watched, her eyes brighter as the sand was poured. Ava didn't dive in right away. The trauma lingered, her trust shaken. But one afternoon, I wheeled her to the Sandbox, and she dipped her hands in, sand slipping through her fingers. She smiled, small, fragile thing, but real. "It's soft, Daddy," she said, her ribbon catching the light. I knelt beside her, my heart swelling. "It's yours, Ava, always." Weeks later, as autumn leaves fell, Ava played daily, her laughter echoing again. Mrs. Larson brought shells, kids built castles, and the neighborhood felt alive. The new Sandbox gleamed, a symbol of resilience. Willow Ridge wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Karen's shadow was gone, and Ava's light shone brighter than ever. I'd kept my promise, and that was everything.